Shut up and sit down.
Again. Right. This is the tricky stage now, because I've printed out my own decals for the Sheene bike, which I've been playing with, by the way. So I've done the first half of the bike. The second half I'll be going through with you all. Basically, I downloaded an image of the decals for the Texaco Heron bike at the 79 British Grand Prix, because the original Sheene bike is white and the decals reflect that. Well, I'm not using none of them because I'm recreating the bike at Silverstone, which was red. Okay? So all of these decals that I downloaded, I then resized in Photoshop, printed out on A4 paper and test fitted. Once I'd found a size that fitted, I then printed them on decal paper. All well and good. And as you can see, they're going on quite nicely. So I've got the other half still to do, which is what I'll go through with you. The reason I've done the first half is obviously I have to see where the decals end, and then where I need to go back over with a brush to touch up to get the lines to meet, which left me the entire sheet that came with the kit sat there doing nothing. Well, some of them I'm using for the sponsorship on the kit. A few more to go on there. All the others were various lines, etc., that basically go round the edge of the bike. I'll get the big pointy stick for this. All these lines here, which are yellow and black. Well, none of these I'm using because the original bike is not what I'm building. So I've got all of these left over. Here comes the clever bit. Let's get me Barry Sheene out. Now, if you look at the Barry, ignore the face, it's not a great likeness, it is a Matchbox kit. But where I've got the segregation between the colours, his leathers actually had a line that went all the way round, which coincidentally matches them bad boys. So all the lines of the bike I've got laid out here, and what I'm doing is I'm chopping them up into little bits, and I'm using them to pinstripe his leathers. See? Now that's about 4 different lines that would have been wasted. This is why you should never throw out your old decals. See? And that has created the pinstripe effect. Now, I could have done that in paint, but you've got to admit, the decals have done that really well. It's a lot of faff, hell of a lot of faff, but bloody well worth it, because whatever gaps I've got left, there's a tiny one down there, I can fill in with a brush. But the main shape of the leathers and all of that lot, because obviously I modified this off, so it would have been really difficult. So with a bit of time and a bit of effort, you can get a good result. A prime example of this is this decal here would have gone on the fairing of the bike. This is the what would be his right hand side, so that would be the top of the fairing where the handlebar protrudes, and then it would run along the side of the fairing by the engine and then come round the way like so and back along and up. Well, that to me looks like it might fit along there, round his Harris and up round under his thigh. See? So I'm going to repurpose that to do that line. Happy days. So for those of you that haven't done this before, don't be afraid of doing it. It's the same principle as applying a decal on the kit. But this is just a little demonstration to sort of say, well, you might have spare decals left on a build, and if you've got particular colours that match, you can actually repurpose them. So I've got another pair of fairing decals, so that one will come round and do the same that side. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with it. Because again, any lines that don't quite correspond, I can quickly touch up with a brush, but it's minimal, and that's the key. But I'm really happy with that, to be quite honest with you, because I've not got particularly steady hands. And yeah, I could have painted that, but that's just settled in there. Ignore the gloss, because I've got Matty's leathers right down here. But I'm putting the decals on a gloss coat, because it makes them slide a hell of a lot easier. Okay. Now when this first goes on, it's not going to conform to what I want. This is where your micro set, and especially your micro sole, come in. Set will stick the decal to the plastic, and the sole melts the decal. So what it will do is it will then melt that decal, and it will fill and conform to all the creases and shapes that you want it to. And this is where this process comes in handy for me, because I'm going right round the cheek of his bum and up under his armpit. So I've got a lot of decal shaping to do just out of that strip, because this is designed to fit on a flat surface of a fairing. Well, I'm not doing that, because I'm me. I'm repurposing it. But you'll see what I mean once it starts going on. And then any little infill bits of lines that I need to marry up and that, I can see what I've got left and make a few, but I can do the rest with the brush. Excuse my shaking. But I kind of want that to go about there, like so. And as you can see, it doesn't sit at all where I want it to. But that's the crucial part I'm after, that shape there. Okay, and I'm just dragging it over with my blade, roughly where I want it, and I'm trying to put the black line roughly where the black paint is, and I'm just moving it around gently. Worry about the creases, because there's creases in your leathers. Okay. Just come along a little bit there, like so. But you kind of get what I mean. Turn him upside down the way, and then we start pulling this little bad boy to where I want it. Round about there. See? Now, as you can see, there's quite an acute turn there, which I'm not worried about because he's sat on his seat. But I can try to lose as much of it as possible. Now, as you can see, I've come round that corner. See? Now, this was designed for a flat piece of plastic. All well and good. This is where your micro sole comes in. Now, because I'm going to larrup some of this on and leave it to do its job. And what this stuff does is it melts the decal, and it will make it sit in all of these little nooks and crannies that I want it to. Okay. Just whop it on there, slap it on, Q-Ted.
Slap it on.
Thank you, Ted. He's a good sport, bless him. He lets me use that clip, which is damn decent of him. So, little joke from the Monday night E-Models live streams. Pop along and watch them with Ted and Fox. He's a great character, Ted. He's from the north of England, but he's got such a wit about him. I don't think sometimes he realises quite how funny he is. But anyhow, he's got this way of saying stuff and little gestures that he does, and the slap it on one is up there, you know. So at every opportunity Fox gets him to give it a slap it on during his live streams, and of course it's something I say quite a bit in my videos. You know, slap the paint on, don't worry about it, blah de blah de blah. So I got in touch with Ted and said, you know, would you have any objection of me editing that into some of my videos? And he, like a good sport and a true gent, he was like, mate, I've no problem with that. So there you go. That is how to repurpose a decal you wouldn't have used. Now once that's dry, that will conform to all the wrinkles in his leathers, and as you can see, that compared to that, it's quite spectacular. So I'm going to let him dry on that front, whilst we have a looky-loo at what else we can do on the bike. So I've got the printed decals as I said to you before. So I'm going to put a little bit more microsole on this side because that's just got to sit a little bit better on that corner. Like so. There's the tank with the British Grand Prix flag on it for that event. Very patriotic man was Mr. Sheene. And there's the fairing all done on one side. So I'm gonna go through how I would knock up the decal to fit the other side of the fairing. Now they're printed on white decal paper. The reason being is it pops the colours how I would like them. What you've got to be mindful of with the white decal paper is you have to cut extremely close to the edge of the piece that you're doing. Otherwise you're going to end up with a big fat white border like a photograph. You don't want that. So a prime example there is that. If I peeled that off, all of this is going to be pure white. So you've got to cut right tight to the edge of the decal. As tightly as you can go now. These for me are basically going on the bike, and then anywhere that I'm not happy with, I can paint straight over them. So they act as a good template for your painting as well, because obviously trying to mask that bike up to do this paint scheme would be a nightmare. All I did is top and tailed it red and black. See? So that's as near as damn it to the edges as we can get. And then any clean up I need to do, I can do with a paintbrush, paint over the top of the decal if I need to. And that little V shape is because we're going on a round fairing, it wouldn't meet. So you just notch a little tiny V shape out of it. But again, you know, if that doesn't quite meet where I want it to, I can blend it in with a bit of brush painting. So you don't need half of these bits, but again, just cut as tight to the edge as possible. And yeah, I'd never been able to buy this decal set because they're out of production, but luckily I found an image online of the bike, and it had a map of where all the advertising logos were, and it's that map that I printed out and shrunk down to make these. See? And you just get as tight to it as you can. Off camera, I do apologise. Just come around your corner. Bosh. And that is that cut out. See? And then we have the same to do with the side. This is why I painted the black lines, in case you wondered, on the other side of the bike. I'll show you in a minute what I mean. But a few people wondered when I posted up some work in progress pics why the bike was painted half and half. And it's purely and simply because where these decals don't quite meet, by pre-painting the bike, it conceals the discrepancy. Come around that little corner like so, and then come along the yellow edge, like so, around the corner, so I can lose the rest of the sheet that I don't need. And then we can just come in there and get rid of that bit, rid of that bit, come all the way along, like so, and then back up the curve. Like so. That is the decals. And what I mean about the paint scheme, you'll notice I painted an edge all the way around like so. That's so that, and bear in mind these don't quite fit, it's so that when that goes on I've got a border that I can lose that against to get the shape. Okay, and then that piece comes along like so and up the way. Okay, so that is how they go on. So whilst Barry's drying, I'm going to sling that one on. Put that on as well, and make up this one as well. Ready for the other side of the bike. So, bike. See how Mr. Sheene is drying up. Let's give him a little press in there. Just move some of the creases around whilst it's soft, like so. As you can see, look at that, it's taking its shape straight away. Oh, loving it. Oh, look at that. And I've got to come all the way up, round, down the other side, round there. And I've got the front and across these chests. So I've got a few of them to do. And that gives you an idea of how I make up odds and sods as we go along. So, yeah. So I'm liking how that's coming out. Yeah. I want that to dry off a little bit, so I'm going to pause whilst this side finishes off drying, and when we come back we'll put on the whole side of the fairing, the front binnacle, we'll do the tank, and we'll do the other half of the bodywork there. Okay, so you guys get to see how all of this goes together. Alright, so I'm going to have a cup of tea, and then when we come back we'll get on with that. Bye for now. Hello again. Right, we are now going to transform this side of the bike to look like that side of the bike. Okay. Again, these are all my own decals since we was last here. All I've done is I've whacked the decals on here and glued the exhausts in, purely because I kept knocking it over. But the process I did here and on the tank is exactly what we're going to be doing on the fairing. Okay, so these again, like I said, are my own printed decals. So I'm going to be laying them on round about there ish. Okay, so you're going to have a little bit of a shortage in some areas, but that's where you then come round with your paints just to blend in the last little edges. Okay, but what I want on this is I want the Texaco to pretty much just be touching the edge there. Okay, so I've got some set and sole which I'll just bring in shot. Oh yeah, Barry Sheene. You can see I've done all the pinstriping now. That was leftovers of decals from the bike, and he's had his first coat of matte varnish. Okay, so that's where we're at with Mr. Sheene. Just rest him over there, and the same with Kenny Roberts, so that I can bring in my Smo Industries set and sole homemade decal stroke glue station, just something I knocked together out of old plumbing fittings. It just comes in handy to have on the bench laying around so that I don't have to keep faffing around looking for stuff and spilling stuff and all that goes with it. Okay, so I just drop that underneath me mat like so. There you go. So that's what we're using, and I've got a pot of water just there that I'm going to soak the decals in. Okay, and literally I just rock this in the water like so, let it curl up and do its thing, and then I just rest it. Done. Okay, so that'll be the first one that goes on. And then that one will be the second one, just to give me roughly what I'm looking for in the fairing stage. Again, I'll drop a little bit of micro set onto the model. And what this stuff does, just helps the decal stick to the kit. And this is all had a gloss coat beforehand, a little coat of gloss varnish, because decals do sit better on a gloss coat or a gloss varnish. Okay. So let's have a looky look, see what we're looking like. And that's all ready to come off. So I'm just going to drop that straight in place, like so. I'm a bit cack-handed, so if I'm moving about and obscuring the camera, I do apologise beforehand. But that's roughly where I want it to go, roughly, he says. I'll dip my brush in a bit of water, just to start floating the decal along the kit. And then it's a bit fingers and thumbs. And my main primary focus is just getting that edge where I want it. Okay, so it's got to come down quite a bit on this. Might lose the mat in a minute because it's getting in the way. Let's just get my knife and I just tug at the decal with the tip of my knife. Okay. Let's lose the mat. Actually, I can just move everything like that, can't I? Look. Just like that. That's my main focus, is getting that as near as damn it to look like the other side. And then I can start turning the corner. I've got a little Q-tip or cotton bud. I can just start smoothing the area that I'm happy with down with. Like so, I'm just going to turn the bike upside down to get rid of that crease under there. And you just start smoothing the decal along the edge. Just like that. So then I'm getting that more or less where I want it. Like so. And then I can start coming up with them lines. As you can see, literally, as I've moved that bottom edge, all of this lot has just instinctively shot itself into place. There's not a lot of movement that I need to do on there. Let's just bring that line up a tad. Just like so. Already, as you can see, that's just started to feather in there quite respectably. Just like that. Okay, now I use a bit of micro salt. This is the one that actually melts the decal, so it will conform to all the crooks and nannies and bits and bobs in the kit. And I just dab that across the surface. Just give my brush a little squidge. And what this does is this, I suppose, yeah, just basically melts the decal a little bit. and smooths out any of the creases. And the key here is to get this done and then leave it. Because if you move it about too much with the sole in place, you'll rip the decal. So I just want to bring that edge up a little bit better. Like so. Get me cotton bud. I'm just coming off shot. I do apologise. All I'm doing is running a cotton bud along it, just to get rid of the last little couple of creases. There's one there. I just want to lose him, like so. Bingo, look at that. Think. It's that easy. And that is that. Now I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to put a little bit of microsol along this front edge. What that'll do, I'll just get me a pointy stick. I think we'll go for a small pointy stick. What that'll do is that'll send this black part of the decal right around this little skinny edge of the fairing, and it will pinch it to it like it has on the other side there, see? And that will conform to that lovely shape. So that's all we're going to do on that one. And then just pull them creases away to the centre of the model, like so. And that, my friends, is that. See, on there. I'm going to let that alone, just like that. Okay, so that's the first fairing decal. Just spotted a tiny little crease still reflecting there at me. We'll get rid of you, and we'll get rid of you. There you go. The light, so it was just catching the edge, and I just spotted underneath the O there a tiny little ripple. It's just enough to catch me eye. I'd rather catch it at this stage. So whilst that's going off, we'll get the next one in place. Just give that a little bit of trim with my scissors, because I can see a white line around there, which I don't like. And again, some of this is going to get painted over because the black part doesn't quite meet at the end of the fairing where I want it to. So in case you wonder why it don't fit quite snugly, it is unfortunately just one of them things. There you go, I'm happy here. Let that do its thing. Just move me scissors out of the way. All in all, this build has come together really well. I've got the beginnings of the Roberts fairing all sanded for the next bike that's going to go with this one. Just out of shot. So the priming stage of that build is going to follow this episode. In case you're wondering why I've got odd bits of model laying around, it's because I've been filming some of the assembly ready to edit in afterwards, if that makes sense, because I'm basically building both of these simultaneously. But when this one's got bits that are drying, I'm doing work on the Roberts bike and vice versa. So in case you wonder, I am a bit of a glutton for punishment. I build really quick when I do kits because health-wise, you know, I do have episodes where the MS gets the better of me and I can't build for a little while, so I tend to blitz build, if that's an operative word, on kits, so that if I can't build, at least I can paint or do something else. Let's just let that sit there. It's not where I want it to be, but it's near enough. And that's how I tend to build. A few people often ask me, you know, I can have anything up to a dozen kits on the go at any one time. And people will say, oh, bloody hell, how do you keep up with it? Or why do you build so many different kits? It's because of that reason. You know, a relapse can last from a week to 6 months. So, you know, 6 months away from the bench is a long old time. But I can still be editing videos or doing other stuff if I can't build. So that's why I blitz build, just in case any of you wonder. It's not for everyone doing it that way, but it's something I've had to, more so over the last few years, look at other options on how I can continue to build. I don't want to give the hobby up at all, so I have to look at ways where I can perhaps keep the motivation there when things ain't going my way with the health. There's enough of boring it to death of that. Let's continue putting this bike together. Now again, you'll notice it doesn't quite meet in every place. I'm just getting it to sit roughly where I'm happy with it. And that's where having the other side already done comes in handy, because I'm just looking, laying it on this edge first before we continue up and around where the handlebar comes out, just like that. Just want you a little bit longer, about there. That's it. Quick look at the front just to see where we are. I'm trying to get this line and this line at roughly the same height. So you're good. Let's just run the Q-tip along. Okay, got to make a cut for the vent, which is there. Get a bit of sole on there so that that can start melting down a bit. Now that we're beginning to there you go, get the decal to start sitting along the top edge of that crease and send it around that air duct. just like that. And then we can send it on its way up here. Yeah, it's getting there nicely. Like I say, this is a crucial little stage. Scissors and pulls the whole thing out of position. Really? A little bleeding. All things happen for a reason, because that's just popped that line exactly where I want it. So what started off as a bit of a pain in the bum, and actually turned out to be quite helpful. And I want to keep pressure on that corner now. Start pulling that crease across, just like that. And making sure I don't put my bloody fingers right in the way. Just start whacking a bit of microsol around on here. Start sitting this area. As you can see, where it melts it just starts making it flexible. And all I'm doing is really softly resting my brush on the edge, because that's the edge that I want to send it round. Okay? And you can see that that's already starting to melt that around this edge. Just put a little bit more on my brush and just carry on. Resting the edge of the brush, let the weight of the brush do the work. And that's had a nice big larrabin of that on there. And that's just folding it over now along that piece of frame, fair and even. But just let the brush do the work. The decals starting to conform to all the little shapes. Just like that. Right. I think that's had enough on there. I'll let that sit for a sec. Get ready for the next one. Where did they go? They go along underneath there. So it's the champion one first. On the back side. I'll put that on a dry decal, really. So what I'll do is I'll put the number of the border on that decal. So that will come round about there. So we can go on. And second that one. And the yellow section goes on here with the heron in front of it. Could probably put the Suzuki on as well, and the Renault on the swing arm, and then that'll give that a chance to dry before I put the other decals over the top. Move my pointy stick, get a bit of micro set on the side there and up the way, because that's where we're going. Careful taking the tweezers off of homemade decals, because they are a little more, but once they're on, they're fine. Just make sure that we're looking reasonably in place. Start floating this around a bit. So that we can get it where we want it to go. Too much, look out. Let it conform to that shape, and then I can touch up the edge. Like that. Yeah, we'll go with that. That's as near as damn it. Like so. It is very fiddly, but so worth it getting these just like that. A quick shufty at the other side, and make sure I'm getting it reasonably in the right spot. Just like that. Happy days. Dab with the salt, and then I can drop that back up where I want it, which is right by that suspension bracket, about there. There you go. So I'm happier with that. That's my Suzuki logo, which goes about there, like so. Quick little shifty around to the other side, get the positioning just a bit better. A little touch up to do on the fairing area, just there, a bit of red to go over. Nothing major. Could put another decal over it, but I know it's there. So that's that. Other stuff is there, the herons on there. Yep, so that just needs to go up a fracker. Let's just get a bit of water on there. albeit not a lot, but enough to catch my eye. Yeah, that's better. I'm happier now. Little things. That's coming along quite nicely, I think. So that is the decals on there. Let's see where I can sit that one round a bit more. It's going. So I'm going to leave that now. Because if I don't, fiddle and fiddle and fiddle and fiddle, it'll come flying off. We don't want that. We've got that to go on the front. So that's not too far off either. That's only going to leave me a little bit of touch up to do with paint. So I can quite happily live with that. So you're the next one to go on. I think then we can get that area buttoned down then. And that lets me see then what touch up work I've got to do on it. A couple of bits there, a bit along that edge. Nothing much, but just enough to catch me eyes. All in all, it is behaving. I know exactly where I want this to go. So it's getting a load of water just to help it float a bit better. And what I'm trying to do on this is there's a little V notch right at the very top. I want to try and get that as central as I can on the bike. Which is about there. Comes round there, comes round there. So that's that. Now let's put a good larrapin of micro sole on there. I'll try to get as much of the set off at this stage from the surface, because this is a compound curve. So it not only curves that way, but it curves that way, a bit like the bowl of a spoon. And I then start at the middle. And start working my way around, like so. Start fanning out any big creases. And all I'm doing is I'm trying to turn big creases into little creases. And then the little creases disappear. So I'm going to let that just agitate, start doing its thing, and then I'll come back at that. even in microsecond anymore at this stage. It's beginning to do everything we want it to do. It's starting to melt and go around there. All I'm doing is just giving the brush and the decal a little helping hand, training it to go around that shape. Okay, and then just come back at this. So what I'm trying to do is make little creases, getting rid of the big ones. Working your way around. So I mean, just little, getting the little creases out. And that is how you do that. Very tiny little crease just there. There isn't now though. There you go, people. Easy, isn't it? Yeah? That was a flat decal on a compound curve in front of your very eyes. I'm happier with that. And I'll just give that a very thin going over with some salt, just so that it continues to do its thing and keeps it conformed when it starts to dry. And that, I think, looks absolutely beautiful. Let's get my pointy stick, and all that leaves me now is just a tiny little bit of touch up here to meet the lines. Same there, a thin bit of black there around the edge, and a little red along there. But all in all, considering they're homemade printed decals, they're not necessarily a bad fit. Have a go, people. So there's not a lot more I can do at the moment. I want all of this now to dry, because I've got decals to go on top of this. Beg your pardon, belching there. How rude of me. I've got other decals to go on top of these, so I want to put a gloss over it all before I put the other 3 decals along the bottom, which are just sponsorship decals for that.